Hello, everyone. This is Dallas McLean from Biohackers Magazine. I'm here with Dr. Nathan Bryan. Very excited to have him with us today. A little bit about Dr. Bryan's background. He earned his undergraduate degree in biochemistry from Texas University in Austin, and he got his doctoral degree from Louisiana State University School of Medicine. And he was the recipient of the Dean's Award for Excellence in Research. So he's got some awards to his name. He pursued his postdoctoral training in Boston University School of Medicine in the Whitaker Cardiovascular Institute. And after a 2-year postdoctoral fellowship in 2006, Dr. Bryan was recruited to join the faculty at University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston. So there's a lot of background with Dr. Bryan and nitric oxide. He's researched this for the past 20 years. He's made many seminal discoveries in the field, and these discoveries have resulted in dozens of issued US and international patents. And the product technology resulting from his discoveries and inventions have generated hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue worldwide. His discoveries and product technologies have impacted patient care centers worldwide as well. He is the current founder and CEO of Nitric Oxide Innovations, LLC, and Numa N101. So a man of many talents. Dr. Bryan, welcome.
Thanks, Dallas. Great to be with you.
We're excited to have you, sir, and dive into the world of nitric oxide and your background in that area. So you have an extensive history of education, obviously, Dr. Bryan. So I want to dive into this curiosity and this desire for knowledge that you probably had since a young age, and how this led you down the track of focusing your career on nitric oxide.
Yeah, Dallas, life's a journey. So my interest started out early on in science and medicine. I've always been curious and, asked a lot of questions, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do coming out of high school. I enrolled in University of Texas. I had a chance to do undergraduate research in biochemistry. Really fell in love with basic science research. There's nothing like the feeling of discovery. And I think that's why people become astronauts or, go into certain career choices, because this feeling of discovery. And the beauty about basic science is I can ask any important biological question and then design experiments to gain the answer. And I'm not aware of any other field where you can do that. You have complete intellectual freedom. So once I finished my degree in biochemistry at the University of Texas, I quickly realized the job market for a bachelor's degree in biochemistry wasn't that great. So I knew I had to go on and further my education. And I found a program at LSU School of Medicine in the Department of Molecular and Cellular Physiology. There I completed a PhD. And that was where I was introduced into the science of nitric oxide. It was a brand new field of study. A Nobel Prize had just been awarded for the discovery a couple of years before. And so we knew a lot about nitric oxide. We certainly knew it was important, but there were so many questions we didn't have answers to, like how the body produces nitric oxide, what goes wrong if it can't make it, and then how do you restore the production of this fleeting molecule safely and effectively. So for me, that was really an important area of research that I just really focused on. And now almost 25 years later, we're still making discoveries and still bringing to the forefront, raising awareness and education, and hopefully bringing about, the importance of this. So not only physicians can start to understand in their patients, the patients and the so-called biohackers can understand the importance of it so that they don't get sick, so they would never have to go see it. And that's really our objective, is to understand the science to the extent that we can correct it and basically empower consumers and patients to take control of their own health and employ sometimes very simple strategies to restore nitric oxide, or at least prevent the age-related decline in nitric oxide. And then we have tools, for ourselves.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for going into that. And I want to start there with nitric oxide itself. You talked about how you were drawn to it in your doctoral degree and everything, because you knew the importance of it, but there was a lot of stuff that wasn't known. What do we know about nitric oxide today in terms of how important it is in the body processes and systems?
Yeah. Well, originally it was recognized as a vasodilator, meaning that when it's produced, it opens up the blood vessels and you get increased blood flow and oxygen delivery, normalization of blood pressure. But it's much more than a vasodilator. It's a signaling molecule. So it's anti-inflammatory, meaning that it prevents white blood cells and platelets from sticking to the lining of the blood vessel, completely inhibits inflammation, oxidative stress, and immune dysfunction, the three hallmarks of every single chronic disease. It's how the red blood cell delivers oxygen. Without nitric oxide, you do not get oxygen delivery to the periphery. It's how our immune system fights off invading pathogens, from virus to bacteria. So when you lose the ability to make nitric oxide, you can now begin to appreciate the number of systemic symptoms and diseases that may manifest. You develop high blood pressure, erectile dysfunction, Alzheimer's, vascular dementia. You become immunocompromised. You have systemic inflammation. And simply restoring nitric oxide can many times basically eliminate all of those symptoms and characteristics of chronic disease.
Wow. Yeah. So it plays an important part in so many different systems in the body. When we're talking about the area of medicine that mentions nitric oxide back in your early days versus now, are we seeing a change in consensus where doctors are focusing a little bit more on this?
It's a slow grind, Dallas. It's known historically that it takes, on average, about 17 years for new discoveries to become standard of care, or at least in the physician-patient relationship. We're 25 years this year after the awarding of the Nobel Prize. So I think we're making some progress. Physicians are starting to understand and consider nitric oxide, but I would say that the majority of them still don't have an appreciation for nitric oxide in clinical medicine. Our approach has been to go out and not only educate and inform the physicians and the healthcare practitioners, but empower the patient, go out and inform the communities. And I think that's why what you do is so important, because we really get some state-of-the-art information and education out to the masses. So now you don't have to rely on a physician or a clinician to direct your healthcare. We now have the ability to get this information out to the masses so that individual patients can take responsibility for their own healthcare and wellness and employ the strategies that we're going to talk about and never have to go to a physician again. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, that you never have to see a physician throughout your life. That's right. Really the true mission of, I think, biohacking, is integrating all these different modalities to where if you're sick, you get better. If you're healthy like we are, you never get sick.
Right. You're charging the body to really be able to take care of all of those illnesses in its optimal state, and tap into the innate process of the body's healing. So talking a little bit about the nitric oxide and where it was back when you were first studying it and where it is today, your mission of bringing this community together and taking it to the biohacking community, to the preventative medicine community, what are your results and what are you guys seeing back from the community on that, in terms of what they've tried before and then what happens when they try things with nitric oxide?
Yeah. Well, when I started, there were probably 25 or 30,000 scientific publications on nitric oxide. Today, there's over 190. So the field has exploded in terms of peer-reviewed publications. There have been a number of nitric oxide products on the market over the past 25 years. 99% of those products don't do anything towards nitric oxide. And I think that's been a disservice to not only the physician community, but also to the patient and consumer in the biohacking. Because, I hear all the time when I go out and I give podcast or interviews on nitric oxide, I'll get emails or texts or phone calls and go, what you said was very powerful and impactful. But, I tried nitric oxide in the past and it didn't do anything. And I go, what do you mean you tried nitric oxide? Well, I took this product that's marketed as a nitric oxide. And they go, oh, well, that's not a nitric oxide. And so that's one of the major hurdles we deal with in this, is dealing with these hundreds of companies who are out there trying to take advantage of this nitric oxide buzzword and, selling people a bill of goods that have nothing to do with nitric oxide. So what we do is completely different. So we make product technology that actually generates nitric oxide gas. So if your body can't make it, we do it for you. And really, I think one of my main objectives is to call out these companies that are selling so-called nitric oxide products and hold them accountable, because it can kill an entire industry. And nitric oxide is so important for health and wellness. If these companies were to go out and continue doing this and selling people products that don't generate nitric oxide, then the masses are going to say, oh, well, nitric oxide doesn't do anything. Well, no, the products these companies are selling didn't do anything. Nitric oxide is extremely potent. In fact, it's the holy grail in cardiovascular medicine. It's the master signaling molecule that tells our own stem cells to mobilize and differentiates, prevents telomere shortening, improves mitochondrial function. Everything we know about health and wellness and the mechanism and the onset and progression of disease can be explained by a loss of nitric oxide production. Wow. So my objective is to create awareness around what really nitric oxide products are. I created a new class of supplements called nutraceuticals, not nutraceuticals, nutraceuticals. And these are products that actually generate nitric oxide gas. So you can't deliver nitric oxide in a capsule. You certainly can't deliver nitric oxide in a chew or a gummy. I mean, this is humorous. You're a scientist and people are buying gummies or chews for nitric oxide. I mean, it would be humorous if it wasn't so dangerous. So my objective is to really teach the true science of nitric oxide so consumers can make informed and educated decisions on which products actually work and which ones can provide them benefits.
And with these companies that are taking advantage and kind of selling faulty things that are supposedly increasing your nitric oxide production, do you think that's also as a result of the lack of regulation from these types of preventative remedies like nitric oxide? Because you were saying it's so new, there wasn't so many papers on it. Now it's exploding, but it doesn't have enough time to catch up, right?
Yeah. The supplement and the nutrition industry is the wild, wild west. Everybody can say the same thing, right? And the purpose of supplements and nutritional is to support the normal structure and function of the organ, of the human. So you can't make drug claims. You can't say it lowers blood pressure, but you can say may support nitric oxide. And so there's two camps of companies out there. There's the good companies who make good products who are just ignorant on the science and biochemistry of nitric oxide. And they do their best to try to fill in the gaps and give the body what it needs, but they're just ignorant, right? So they need education and information. And that's fine, because ignorance is curable. The other camp are companies who deliberately try to defraud and deceive their customers because they know know very clearly that the products that they're developing do not, cannot, and will not provide any source of nitric oxide or any benefits of nitric oxide to their customer, but yet they're so focused on building profits for the company that they're going to sell them anything that they'll buy. So they're taking advantage of the customer, they're deceiving them, and it's outright wrong.
So are they using scientific studies funded by themselves to somewhat deceive the customer as well?
Well, there's a number of strategies these companies are using. So yeah, they'll take an ingredient that's been studied in isolation in a certain population, put that ingredient in the product, and then say, oh, this product has been shown clinically. No, that product hasn't been shown clinically. There's an ingredient in there, and most of the time it's not even at the dose or the amounts that were studied in the actual clinical trial. But all of these are, I mean, there's different strategies to do, and I think it's, I understand the economics of business. I've been in business now for going on more than 15 years, so I understand the economics of it and the pressures of building a profitable business. But that's not my objective at all. My objective is to get the right information in the hands of people, and when you do the right thing, the cash register rings. But it's not my objective to ring the cash. And I think that's a completely different philosophy, and people need to understand that. I've spent 25 years in the academic medicine and basic sciences, and it's taken me a quarter of a century to build a credibility and a reputation, and I'm not going to put it at risk to try to make a quick profit.
I'm so glad you said that, Dr. Bryan, because especially in this industry, I feel like it's very tempting for companies and individuals that are trying to make a name for themselves or make a product to go straight towards getting money so that they can continue researching and continue building their product. But if you focus on the service and the service you're providing to the community, then the money will come. That's an after effect. Yeah. So I'm so glad you said that. Right. And I'm glad we're talking about this, because I was asking a couple of those questions because we're also trying to establish some type of resource to use that will help consumers, because biohacking, as you know, is such a new industry. It's booming, but it's so new, and there's not a lot of resources to turn to be like, well, what is this? How do I know this is real? How do I know this works? And we're doing our Cyborg Certified program to try and look into the science behind the products, test the products, take them apart, and see what's really down there in a very deep sense, so that we can say, look, this product, we've reviewed it with our team. This has everything that has flying colors in terms of being a product that is safe to use, good to use, and will help, and does have the science to back up the claims that it makes.
Yeah, that's so needed, because consumers are confused. I've been doing this. I'm a trained scientist, and even I'm confused by a lot of the messaging and marketing by companies that are promising a certain outcome. And understanding the science, there's no way in hell I can ever achieve that. Right. So I think there has to be a so-called good housekeeping seal of approval, if you will, on these different treatment modalities, because you can spend your entire fortune, money, time, and effort on these different biohacking modalities, and they may not work. So we have to understand the science. We have to have some rigor and scientific evaluation and some approval process that lets the consumers know that, hey, this has been tested, it's been validated and verified, and this is recommended, so-called, by the biohacking. And I think that's absolutely necessary to make sure that, again, that people get the best for their money, and basically achieve what they want to achieve. And that's it's optimal health and wellness and disease prevention. That's what we're all out.
Most definitely. And as we both know, the biohacking and the optimization industry is full of a lot of different people from different walks of life. Some people have a pain to purpose journey. They couldn't figure out what was wrong, and they did their own self-discovery, and they found some biohack that helped them and that led them down this road of investigative medicine. And then there's other people that just want to keep their health in the most optimal state of well-being and well into their later ages. So when you're talking about your product, do you see the same mix, or do you see it gradually favor one side more than the other?
No, I think it fits anybody who's looking. I mean, there's two people, and I think you just highlighted that. There are people who have been sick or are sick and looking to get better. And there's people like you and I, Dallas, who are still really healthy, and we're trying to do our best not to get sick. But nitric oxide fits into both of those categories. So if you're sick with a chronic illness that's been poorly managed by your physician for 10, 20, 30 years, then certainly you should look for nitric oxide, because it's really the root cause of most, if not all, chronic disease. And then for us, if we want to prevent age-related disease, then we certainly have to take account for our nitric oxide production and make sure we don't lose nitric oxide the older we get. Because the scientific data tells us that it's the loss of nitric oxide that precedes all the structural changes that occurs in the blood vessels and end organ disease by many years, sometimes decades. So once our nitric oxide starts to shut down, then that sets the stage for the onset progression of disease. But if we can prevent the loss of nitric oxide production, then mechanistically, all the scientific data tell us that we can prevent the onset and progression of most, if not all, chronic disease. So it's absolutely essential. It's foundational for everything that the human body does. But I just want to make a very important point. This is not a panacea. It's not an end-all be all cure all. It's not a silver bullet. But I think what it is, it's foundation that without nitric oxide, all these other biohacking modalities are going to have limited utility and effect. If you first start with nitric oxide, improve blood flow, reduce inflammation, improve oxygen delivery, now anything else you do is going to be better. I think it's part of an overall program, but I'm not here to tell you that nitric oxide is the end all be all.
And that's very well said there for sure. I think it is important to focus on that foundation before we move on to those other technologies that just increase our performance or right. More aesthetics and stuff like that. Talking a little bit about nitric oxide and the history of this molecule in terms of our recent progression as a species and everything. Were we able to get sufficient levels back before industrialized medicine or industrialization of nitric oxide? And now we're kind of seeing the effects of growing at a how would you say, exponential rate as a species?
Human physiology is quite remarkable. I've been studying the human body for more than 25 years, and I'm still surprised at how resilient the human body is. Even in a so-called westernized lifestyle where we insult our body every day with the foods we eat, the things we do or don't do, but yet the human body is still resilient and performs. So if we look back, say 100, 150 years ago, most people grew their own food. There were no herbicides or pesticides to put on it. And people were laborers, and we were out in the sunlight every day, right? So we had physical activity. We had food that was replete in most minerals and nutrients, and we had sunlight. Now, if you look at the typical American today, we're sedentary by design. We get in our car, we drive to our office, we sit behind a desk for 8 hours a day, we get home, and nobody sweats. The food we eat, there's data showing now that the food grown in America since the 1940s has 78% less vitamins, minerals, and nutrients than it did in the 40s. So the food we eat and the food we grow is less nutrient. And then we're exposed to EMFs, with herbicides, pesticides, environmental toxins. But yet our body is so resilient that keep going. I mean, we're the sickest population on earth, but yet, people are still living. They're not living well, but they're living. So I think everything we've done in terms of becoming an industrialized country or industrialized world is leading to the decrease in nitric oxide production. Back then there weren't antibiotics. Antibiotics kill the microbiome, shut down nitric oxide production. People weren't using mouth, killing the oral microbiome, shutting down nitric oxide. 2 out of 3 Americans use mouthwash. 2 out of 3 Americans have an unsafe elevation in blood. That's not a coincidence. We didn't have drugs like antacid that shut down nitric oxide. So all of these things that we're doing over the past 100 years have all led to a stepwise reduction in nitric oxide production. And so for me, it's no mystery why Americans are the sickest population on earth, because everything we do and the Western diet and Western lifestyle leads to a decrease in nitric oxide production. And we can reverse that. We have the technology to do it. We understand mechanistically what goes wrong, and we can.
Right. It's kind of ironic because at the risk of being so convenient and having everything on demand, we kind of put our health up for grabs of just not having those nutrients and not having those essential elements that our body needs to function. And now we're at the state where it's like we can't even go back to food necessarily. We have to supplement in a sense of getting those nutrients that will keep our body functioning optimally, not having to go to the doctor, as you said earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you cannot get all the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients you need from the foods we eat here in America. It's simply impossible. So you have to supplement. I'm not saying you need to supplement everything, but I think most people should do a micronutrient analysis and see exactly what their body's deficient. And it goes back to the days of Linus Pauling, who famously said that most, if not all, chronic diseases are caused by a nutrient deficiency. Well, that's easily fixed, right? Just replete or supplement what's missing. The body heals itself. But yet we're never missing a prescription drug, so it doesn't make sense to prescribe a drug that inhibits cholesterol production or inhibits stomach acid production. That's not how the human body is designed to work. Give the body what it needs, remove from the body what it doesn't need, and the body heals itself. It's really that simple.
There you go. Yeah. If the body has all the tools, it'll keep going for sure.
Yeah, get out of the way. We got to get out of the way.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, Dr. Bryan, talking a little bit about nitric oxide and your specific background with it in terms of the products you produce and products where you're trying to elevate your science behind and everything. What sets you apart from the other 99% that we were talking about before? I know yours produces a nitric oxide gas. Let's talk a little bit about the importance of that mechanism.
Yeah. So we understand today how the human body makes nitric oxide. There's 2 primary pathways. We understand what disrupts both of those pathways, and we know how to fix it. So our whole strategy from, even 15, 20 years ago was, if your body can't make nitric oxide, we got to do it for it, right? And this concept has been around forever. If you have low testosterone, what do? You take testosterone. If you have low hormones in women, you take hormone replacement. So this concept has been around forever. You just give back from the body what is missing. But here's what I didn't want to do. Like testosterone, if you give testosterone to men, they become dependent upon it. It shuts down, gonadal production of testosterone. And I never want people to be dependent upon my product technology for them. I don't want them hooked on this for the rest. It's a great financial model. That's not physiological and what I'm after. So we also understood how to restore the production of nitric oxide from the enzyme in the lining of the blood vessel. And so we include that in this technology. So if your body can't make nitric oxide, we do it for you. Number 2, we restore your ability to make nitric oxide on your own. So theoretically, you would need less and less of my products over time, which is beautiful because that means that we're giving the body what it needs. The body can do it on its own. But because we live in such a toxic environment, I actually recommend people take it, at least periodically to get that boost of nitric oxide. So that's what makes us different. And so any product that we bring to market, we have a nitric oxide analyzer. It's a gas phase analyzer. And so you can detect, quantify, and verify nitric oxide gas coming off every product we bring to market. If it doesn't, then something's wrong. And my commitment to my customers and the people who buy our products is that this product will work the same in every single time you take it, and we can verify it, quantify. And there's no other products like that on the market, on the planet. And so that's really what differentiates. And it's very powerful. We don't have to, we know how much nitric oxide a healthy person makes. We give that back. We know the dose that's safe. We know the dose that's effective at restoring physiological functions. And that's kind of our metric, and that's our goal.
I love it. That's a great answer. Talking a little bit about your product specifically, what would you say the staples are of the avenues that people use to get their nitric oxide production up and help them produce it themselves?
Well, my objective is to really bring to market safe and effective nitric oxide products in every major market segment around the world. So we do this in nutrition and dietetics. We do it in skincare. We're doing it through FDA approved drugs. So our staple product is a lozenge, the N101 nitric oxide lozenge. So it's an orally disintegrating tablet. Put it in your mouth. As it's dissolving, it's generating nitric oxide. So we designed that to have a resident time of 5 to 6 minutes. And during that 5 to 6 minutes, we're generating a certain amount of nitric oxide over a certain period. It's vasoactive. It can, support blood pressure, normalize blood pressure, reduce inflammation, lower triglycerides, a number of, verified clinical. And the others we've made, as you know, beets have been a popular product for the past 10, 12 years. And again, 99% of the beet products out there don't do anything towards nitric oxide. So we've taken beets, we ferment these beets, so we reconvert them. We take the oxalates out, so we're not worried about kidney stones. And then we put other nutrients in there like electrolytes and mitochondrial ATP. And this product is called NOB. It's a great energy product. In fact, we positioned it to take place things like Red Bull, 5-Hour Energy, Monster Energy drinks, the really dangerous stimulant-ridden drinks. So we can get a natural source of energy. So those are our two main kind of nutritional product deliveries. And so I encourage people to do your homework. There are these beets out there that are marketed and sold. There's really nothing super about certain beets, especially the gummies. And so don't be fooled by the marketing and follow the science. And then we make a skincare product, a topical that's a dual chamber. When you mix these two components together, they generate nitric oxide gas. And you can actually see this product work. It's a new product category in skincare and beauty. Most beauty products are designed to hide or mask fine lines and wrinkles. We get to the root cause of your fine lines and wrinkles. You apply this to your skin and it turns pink. That pink is reflective of the increased blood flow that we're getting to that organ. So the skin is just like any other organ. Without sufficient blood flow, it fails. So if we restore blood flow to the skin, we improve cellular turnover, we improve collagen deposition, improve hydration, fine lines and wrinkles go away. So now we've taken, those are our consumer-based products. And now we're in phase 3 clinical trials through the FDA going for specific drug indications, things like ischemic heart disease, Alzheimer's, diabetic non-healing wounds, ulcer, and probably eventually even, heart failure, pulmonary hypertension. So to me, there's really no indication in clinical medicine where nitric oxide would not be therapeutic and beneficial, given at the right dose, at the right time, and the right.
That's beautiful. And I love how you're covering all the different areas of topical use and oral use and people using it for their performance routines. When we're talking about nitric oxide supplements and your products in particular, do you have any experience or stories to share with people that have used them in conjunction with other biohacks that they've noticed a good stacking result or something to that effect?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the empirical published clinical data, that we published, I think, in 2011. We had a 15-year-old kid at Texas Children's Hospital that had a very rare genetic disorder, and he had resistant hypertension, he had kidney disease, liver disease, systemic disease, and no prescription drug was making him better. So we started him on our lozenge, our nitric oxide releasing lozenge. Within 4 hours, we normalized his blood pressure. Within 5 days, we resolved his kidney disease. Within 5 months, we completely reversed his heart disease.
Oh my gosh.
And this is a kid with a genetic disorder to which there were thought to be no treatment or cure for.
And when you say reversed, like completely didn't come back, or he had to stay on a regimen, or?
Well, he's still on the regimen, but he had at 15 years old, he had a heart twice the size of a normal 15-year-old. Once we normalized his blood pressure with the lozenge, we mobilized stem cells, we remodeled the heart. 5 months later, he had normal heart, normal size, normal function. And that was 2011. 12 years out, the kid's still off all prescription medication. He only takes our lozenge, graduated high school. His mental acuity improved. He beat his dad in chess, and just really a remarkable a story. You would call it almost a miracle, but miracles are unexplained. We completely can explain what happened to this kid clinically because we understand physiology and the biochemistry of nitric oxide, and we can explain all the clinical changes and benefits he had. So that's probably our proudest moment. Really,
that's
a
amazing.
Kid that really was, out of solutions, if you will, from his physicians, and we rescued him, providing him benefit now past 15 years. But we find that people who are doing other biohacking, like infrared sauna, for example, take our nitric oxide before the infrared light will release and enhance the effects on nitric oxide. Hyperbaric oxygen, if you take our lozenge before you go into hyperbaric, improve the stem cell mobilization and the effects of hyperbaric oxygen. Really, any treatment modality, where it's cryotherapy or cold plunge, everything we do is about blood flow and perfusion and getting oxygen nutrient delivered to every cell in the body. That's what nitric oxide does.
Great. And with a story like that 15-year-old kid, it would seem to me that you guys would be unafraid to go toe-to-toe with any case out there, almost in the sense of who is suffering and what the cause is and the root of that cause, because nitric oxide seems so involved in everything that it can only help.
Well, that's what motivated us to go into clinical trials and develop a drug company, because, supplements, we can't do that in supplements. Even though you may see it in the population, by law and by definition, supplements can't make drugs in their drugs. So we've taken our technology and we're actually developed a separate drug company now, going through phase 3 clinical trials, going through the rigor of drug trials, capital expense, and making sure that we, in a specific population, can demonstrate safety and efficacy in certain diseases. And I think, as I mentioned, it's just a matter of checking the list. I think there's not a single indication where nitric oxide would not be beneficial. Take Alzheimer's, for example. Every single Alzheimer's drug that's ever been developed and tried to get through clinical trials has failed. And the reason for that is they're after the wrong target. This amyloid, beta amyloid tau tango hypothesis is flawed. Those are consequences of disease, not the cause of the loss of nitric oxide, the loss of insulin signaling, loss of perfusion to the brain is what causes Alzheimer's. Nitric oxide fixes that, improves blood flow to the brain, improves insulin signaling, improves glucose uptake. You completely reverse the metabolic phenotype in Alzheimer's. So we feel very confident we've got the right target, we've got the right drug, and we're going to continue to move forward and advance the science.
That's amazing. And I'm sure you guys will. It's such an important thing and a great thing to see continuously in the biohacking industry about getting the root of the issue so that the individual's problems are fixed and not temporary. So,
well, that's the goal. Brad, we've in Dallas in the scientific community, we understand the mechanism of every single chronic disease. I mean, it's very well defined. There is no guesswork anymore. So now our challenge and really our objective is we understand the mechanism of disease to the extent now we can develop personalized therapies to get to the root cause. And that's really what puts my drug company apart from any other. We're not giving synthetic drugs the body's never seen. We're restoring the production of a molecule that's absolutely essential. We call this, so in drug development, you call that pharmacology, right? You develop an inhibitor of a biochemical reaction, and then there's always side effects. What we do is called restorative physiology. So we understand now what goes wrong if we can't make nitric, and we just give it back, and we improve their body's ability to make. So in terms of safety, we don't expect any safety issues. We haven't seen any safety issues. Now we just have to demonstrate efficacy in our drug. And that's very exciting, and it puts us light years ahead of any competition.
Wow. Yeah. I'm sure you guys are going to go far with that. And talking a little bit about the future of your companies and where you guys see yourself. I know about the FDA thing you've mentioned. Are there any other things in the pipeline that the biohacking community or the health and wellness industry should be excited about?
Well, my objective is just to get nitric oxide on the radar. It's something that every biohacker should know about, should understand, and should consider as part of their biohacking regimen, daily routine. But my objective, trained as a drug discovery chemist, is to get these drugs into clinical trials. So nutrition, dietary supplement products, and cosmetic kind of skincare and beauty products. There's no limit to access, right? Everybody can buy this around the world. But in order to get it accepted through the key opinion leaders, through physicians, through mainstream medical, we have to go through clinical trials. So then physicians, when they see a patient, they go, oh, this is a symptom or disease of nitric oxide deficiency. Today, they don't have a way to write a prescription for a safe and effective nitric oxide product. So they give them other drugs that actually make them work. So my objective is to give the physician a drug that's gone through clinical trials, approved by the FDA, approved by other regulatory agencies around the world. So now when any patient goes into any doctor's office around the world, they've got a solution that gets to the root cause of their problem. So that's what I'm excited about. The skincare is really exciting because we're seeing transformative results in skincare and beauty by taking our topical nitric oxide along with the lozenge. This whole concept of beauty inside and out. And it makes sense because the skin is a reflection of internal health. If you're not healthy inside, your skin's not going to look healthy and you're going to look old. So we can't just fix this topically, right? We can kind of make it look better, but until we fix your internal health, and that's why it's so important to take the lozenge. We now open up the microcirculation internally. We apply the serum topically. Now we open up those capillaries kind of on the superficial level or the surface. Now we're perfusing the dermis from the outside, the inside, and the skin looks radiant, and it's amazing results.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, tackling it from both ends for sure. So what would you say then the timeline is of what you would expect or what you would hope to kind of break into that FDA industry?
Well, we stopped our COVID trial. We had our nitric oxide drug in phase 3 trials for COVID. But as everyone's aware now, COVID changed over the course of 2 to 3 years, and people weren't getting sick and dying from COVID. So we stopped that drug study. It was a very difficult study. It was a moving target in terms of COVID. So now we're in phase 3 clinical trials for ischemic heart disease. We anticipate that drug study to be completed probably in the next 9 to 12 months. We hope to have a drug approved and on the market in 2024. We're going to start up our Alzheimer's drug study probably fourth quarter this year. That's going to take a little bit longer. Alzheimer's is a little bit slower progressing disease in some patients.
Yeah.
So that's probably a 2 to 3 year project. We've got a topical drug for diabetic non-healing ulcers. So we'll probably start up maybe first quarter of 2024. Again, that'll probably be a 6 to 9 month study. So I anticipate, and it's my kind of ambition, that we have multiple drugs starting next year and on the market, 3 to 5 drugs in the next 3 years that'll be approved on the market and changing billions of lives around the world. But in the meantime, we have products available today that I think if you want to be proactive, nitric oxide is a very essential part of what we're doing to be proactive and not develop any, age-related disease. So we have product technology today that's accessible worldwide that people take as a supplemental.
Of course. Yeah. And I want to get to that. But first, I just want to say, Dr. Bryan, I've had a great time here. I've learned a lot. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And I know everyone listening and reading this article has learned a lot and will want to find out more about nitric oxide. So I'll give you the last words of telling everybody how they can find out more, get involved, and start learning about nitric oxide.
Well, it's not my objective to sell you products. My objective is to provide you quality education and information based on real science. So I typically send people to my YouTube channel. I got a number of lectures on there, interviews. It's Dr. Nathan S. Bryan Nitric Oxide on YouTube, where you can just search me. I send people to my educational website. There's no product offerings on there. It's just information and education. It's drnathansbryan.com. I do a monthly blog. There's a couple of videos on there, animated educational videos that I encourage you to watch. I'm on social media, Instagram at Dr. Nathan S. Bryan, Twitter at Dr. Nitric, LinkedIn. And then for those of you who are interested in our product technology, it's n101.com.
Very nice. Well, again, Dr. Bryan, it's been a pleasure, and I really hope we could speak again soon sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dallas. I appreciate you.
Thank you.